In psychology, there is a test called the Stroop Test, which is a test of like neurocognitive functioning they use for various reasons, and it involves the ability to um, inhibit the response to one facet of a stimulus that you're receiving, so that you can focus on the other facet. So the way this works is, let's suppose you are reading the word uh, red, R-E-D, and if it's written in like normal black ink, it'd be pretty easy for you to read it as red. But now suppose that the word red was, I don't know, it was in some non-standard color that was not red, like it was in blue, or it was in yellow, or it was in purple. It might take a second when you are looking at that word to ignore the color that the letters are written in, and read the word. So this I want to analogize to the way in which we interpret thought. Thought, in a way, has these two facets. One facet is the facet which we normally get caught up in, which is the referential quality of it, I suppose. It's what the thought is saying is going on. It's what we understand it to mean, in a sense. But there is another element of the thought, which is the thought as an expression of color itself. In a way, we're kind of reversing the Stroop test here, right? Because normally in the Stroop test, you're trying to read the word. And here, what I want to point out is that we normally are reading the words, but there's another aspect of it, which is the color of it, the color of the thought itself. The thoughts are, in some sense, much more like streaks of paint that a painter might put on a canvas, that don't have any inherent meaning. Actually, we have to go a step further, is the truth, and say that even the impression of meaning that the thoughts appear to convey are themselves part of that color. So we don't want to really, in some sense, entirely dispense with that meaning facet, but recognize it too as not what it appears to be, and on and on and on. That the sense of the thought, of what the thought is saying, and what it's referring to, is itself like color. It's like color itself. It's like a kind of noise or expression which doesn't have the meaning that it seems to have. Even in the sense that it does have the meaning, even that very sense is itself a kind of feeling, or a kind of really joyful expression of the self, with capital S. The difficulty is, just like with the Stroop test, it's very difficult to see this sort of colorful quality of thought as an expression of sound, or thought as an expression of color, which doesn't inherently have any meaning, when thought is so often symbolic. If it's not literally in words, then it's in things that might as well be words. They are referring to other things. And so our mind is drawn to that referential quality of thought. And in a way, surrender and inquiry are trying to get us to see that actually this referential quality of thought, which is the thought, is pointing to things like, oh yeah, that, that's the moon, or, tomorrow is Friday, or, I have 3 children, or whatever. Those are all the referential things the thought is saying. You should do exercise at 6 in the morning, whatever it says, right? Um, that it's very hard to see the facet of thought, which is the other perspective, which is the thought is actually, as I say, like a kind of um, um, like abstract art, where it doesn't inherently refer to anything. It's like clouds in the sky. It doesn't inherently refer to anything, but is a kind of uh, expression or distribution of light, of color, of some kind of um, sensation of some sort. So our mind is constantly drawn to what the thought is saying is going on, not recognizing that the thought itself, and including what it's saying, are themselves music, in a way. It's similar to something I tell people sometimes, which is that in surrender or inquiry, there's an analogy to looking into a mirror. And normally when you look into a mirror, you are noticing the objects that are reflected in the mirror. This would be like the referential quality of thought. What would be counterintuitive and difficult for us normally would be to notice the shiny, silvery surface of the mirror itself. In the process of noticing the shiny, silvery surface of the mirror itself, you tend to have to ignore the objects that are reflected. That is, the objects that are reflected themselves become merely the illustration of that shiny, silvery, reflective surface. They're not seen as objects separately. They're just the things that are showing you the shine. In the same way, thought normally, again, is like those objects that are reflective. You're drawn to what the thought is saying is going on, the story it's telling, rather than recognizing that the story it's telling, what it's saying is going on, is all part of the feel of the reflectiveness of the mirror of the mind. So all these things are happening, and if they are recognized as mere play of light, then what the thoughts are saying no longer has a volume to it, basically. It becomes itself just a series of modifications of the endless, infinite awareness.